Looking for inspiration for some creepy good eats? Well, today we're looking at 3 savory ideas to make your Halloween season spooktacular. Hi there, foodie friends. My name is Carly, and welcome back to my channel, Adventures in Yum. The first savory Halloween food are these coffin garlic breads. We start by preparing a quick bread recipe. I'm testing a recipe for a quick bread that uses some of my sourdough starter discard and requires no proofing time. If you want the recipe, here is my tester recipe that I use to make these coffins. To 3 cups or about 420 grams of all-purpose flour, we add 1 tablespoon of baking powder and 3/4 teaspoon of salt. We give that a quick whisk, and then we add 1 cup or about 236 grams of sourdough starter and 1 cup or about 248 grams of plain Greek yogurt. We mix that up until it just comes together. We then divide the dough into 4 because I have 4 wells in my coffin pan. I decided to use a scale to weigh the dough to ensure that they're all equal weights. We're then pressing the dough balls into the coffin baking pan and baking this at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius for about 25 to 30 minutes. Once they're nicely browned on top like this, we can brush them with some melted salted butter on top and bake them for about 5 more minutes if we want plain bread. Or for our garlic bread, we can whip up a butter, cheese, and herb mixture to spread on our breads. These did get pretty puffy, so I decided to cut them in half and spread the cheese mixture on top of each. I usually measure the amount of herbs and cheese with my heart, so I don't really have a set recipe yet, but I do like to include dried oregano, black pepper, garlic powder with parsley, onion powder, smoked paprika, a little bit of salt, and also sometimes some extra dried herbs like parsley, sage, and thyme. This time I was a little bit heavy-handed with the herbs, so usually I go a little bit lighter on that, but I am working on a more consistent recipe to share with you, so stay tuned for that in the future. After we spread the cheese, herb, and butter mixture on our coffin breads, we're baking this at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius for about 10 to 15 minutes more, or until it reaches your desired toastiness. These are yummy, and I love that you can see the skeleton image from the bottom of the pan on the bottom of the breads. Do you love garlic bread? Let me know in the comments. The second savory Halloween food are these meatballs. We start by preparing our meatball mixture using your favorite meatball recipe. I want to make a quick note here that usually when making meatballs, I do brown the sides of the meatballs either in a pan on the stove or I broil the tops and bottoms in the oven. I didn't do that this time because I wanted the presentation to look a certain way, but in the future, I think I would still brown at least the bottom and sides when making meatballs like this again. This time we're taking about 2 tablespoons of our meat mixture and shaping it into a ball. We then press our finger into the center of the meatball and take a little ball of mozzarella and press it into the meatball. We then kind of reshape it back into a ball and place it into a baking dish. Once we're all done, we place a piece of aluminum foil over the top and then bake these at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 176 degrees Celsius for about 30 minutes. We then add some sliced olives on top of the center of the mozzarella and gently press them a little into the cheese to get them to stick. You can certainly use black olives or even a combination of olives, but I had some green olives in the fridge, so that's why I decided to use those this time. I also decided to add little minced pieces of pimento into the center because they were also in the olive bottle and I felt like I just needed a little bit of something. Next, we're adding some pasta sauce like marinara, or you can take some tomato sauce and add some seasonings and herbs like I did here. We add it around the meatballs, making sure to not get it on the top of our eyeballs, and then we bake this for an additional 10 to 15 minutes or until the meatballs are fully cooked through. These are so fun and tasty. Have you made meatballs yet? Let me know in the comments. Before we make our final Halloween food item, if you're getting value out of this video, then please make sure to hit that like button, click subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified about my latest video. The third savory Halloween food are these Myuu mozzarella puff pastry sticks. We roll out some puff pastry on a lightly floured work surface. Then we place our mozzarella sticks on top. We then use a paring knife to cut the puff pastry into pieces that are just large enough to fully cover the mozzarella sticks. I honestly should have been a little more generous with the size of puff pastry I used for these, so in the future I'm going to cut the puff pastry a little bit bigger as well as use some egg wash to help seal the seam of the puff pastry. Here we're pressing all the edges of the puff pastry to make sure that the entire mozzarella stick is completely covered. Once they're all wrapped up, we take a second sheet of puff pastry and roll it out like we did with the first one, and then we're using our paring knife to cut thin strips. We then take the strips and wrap them around the puff pastry mozzarella sticks to give it that mummy look. Finally, once all of our mozzarella mummies are fully wrapped and ready to go, we add these little eyes using a couple pieces of black olives. And then for my egg wash, I'm using 1 whole egg and a little splash of whole milk. We give that a quick mix and brush the tops and sides of our mummies with it. We then bake this at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius for about 20 to 25 minutes or until they're nicely browned. I use the convection setting on my oven to bake these, which gets them a little extra crispy. The convection setting is like an air fryer, but I haven't tried them in an actual air fryer yet, so if you do try them in your air fryer, let me know how they turn out. As you can see, I did have cheese get out of the mummies, so I'm going to try what I mentioned at the beginning of this tutorial to improve them for the future, but the puff pastry was still so crispy and super flaky. I used some jarred pasta sauce and some ranch for dipping sauces, but we also tried these as a crunchy accompaniment to some soup, and that was also so delicious. I think these mummies are definitely my favorite of the 3 spooky foods that we looked at today, but which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments if you give any of these Halloween items a try and how you like them. If you're interested in checking out some of the products I used in this video, then please make sure to check out that video description below for some of their Amazon links. Thank you so much for joining me today, foodie friends. I'll see you next time for another creeptastic, yummy adventure.